Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wild Woman Podcast. I have a long overdue guest with me today, but as she knows herself, it's been divinely timed as everything is. I always, I was thinking about that this morning. I said, you could get caught up in, when you should do things and I went, no, when the time is right for two people to have a conversation, it just happens. There is no planning, and I love living that way. So it is absolutely the perfect time for Sharon Fitzmaurice to join me here on the podcast. And Sharon is from, like myself, the west coast of Ireland, Galway. She's a holistic wellness coach. She is a teacher. She is an author of 3 books. She is a podcaster. She is a retreat holder. She, if that's the right word, she's just come back from one in Connemara, and so many more things. And anyone living in Galway and in Ireland, I'm sure so many of my guests have spoken of how Sharon has helped them in their own journey in their life. And I'm getting the chills as I feel it, because she really is a powerful, powerful force of nature. And what I love about her, I've only met her once physically in person. I'm just realizing that now. It's so funny. And I will let Sharon speak in a moment. But what I love about her when I did meet her, and I mentioned this on her podcast, was I arrived into a beautiful herbalist, Dillish Clare, her shop in Galway a few years back, and she was signing copies of her own personal book. I think, Someone Please Help Me. So I did. And the word that comes to mind is authentic. I just felt that from the moment I met her. This woman is so real. She's so authentic. She is completely herself. And I think there is no better way to be and inspire others than to do that. Um, so thank you, Sharon. I'm just so delighted to have you here with me today. It's such a privilege after
Well,
all this time.
Celine,
Welcome.
thank you so much.
After all that.
No, that is lovely. And yeah, you gave my heart a little flutter there when you said about other people, and working with other people. And you know what is amazing? That thought came into my head this morning, Celine. I was sitting outside. It's a very foggy, misty morning here in the west of Ireland. And of course, I was watching the birds and seeing the changing color of the leaves and them falling. And I was saying how life is always changing for us. But again, in those moments, I always feel so grateful because, again, as you just said, I've just come back from a retreat. And a lot of the participants will say it takes them a while to process everything that happens, but also I believe it should, I don't use the word should, but for
Mhm.
us as facilitators, as teachers, that we all should process what has happened that weekend as well, because we're not just there to, pass on the information. You're sharing energy and space with so many beautiful souls that for me, it always has an impact on me, and I'm always learning from them. So there in the quiet moments of my back garden as I sat with nature, and I just felt so grateful that I have the privilege to work with so many people. It's not that I look and go, oh, all of these people work with me. It's that I
Mhm.
get the privilege every day for people to place their trust in me. And I just
Mhm.
think that's the greatest blessing in the world, that you can hold space for somebody else. Because at the end of the day, like you and me, Celine, we all want space for ourselves and we want to be held in a space, where people listen to us and they honor our time and value us. And I think that's what the whole connection for me is with people, even with ours, that one physical meeting in the bookshop, but again, connecting online over time. And then you were on my podcast, and here I'm on yours today. Those connections, they may, as I said, the thread might get a bit longer,
Mm.
but we're still connected. There's something that connected us in that moment that stays with you.
Yes.
Again, for me, it's soul to soul. It always is. It's like our souls connected for a reason in that moment.
Oh, I get the chills again. I'll be doing it the whole way through. And that's beautiful, Sharon. And you know what? I'm feeling that more and more. It is this energetic, and I know sometimes it's hard to put words on, but you feel it.
Mm,
connection. It's like a web. I've been feeling this more and more with the podcast. Every time it's like this big golden web. And when we're meant to, we're all moving around in it. And it's like your guide, when you follow that guidance, oh, I'm just meant to contact that person. I don't really know why, but I will. And then they often, this has been the biggest lesson, and you touched on it there, saying you feel the privilege of sharing and holding space with people is I'm seeing every guest. I'm not seeing, it's the truth. Every guest is my teacher. They've been sent to teach me something or remind me of something or share something with me or maybe
mm,
help me heal something that maybe I'm not aware of. And just by knowing that every connection or contact is very sacred, or
mm.
isn't it, looking at it in that way changes everything. You must have found it
Absolutely.
from your years now of, what would you say? I mean, you've worked and shared space and held space for so many people. How has that changed, or have you seen it change?
I think what's changed for me is instead of focusing on myself and, you know, what way I should be with the person, it's turn up as yourself and hold space for that person and allow them to be themselves. And in those moments, it's like time kind of stands still in a way because, and I say this constantly to all my groups and clients, I am working with a person, I am connected to them, and there's only the two of us at that moment in time. There's nobody else. As I said, I work from my therapy room at home when I'm with one-to-one clients, and the house could be falling down below me. And it doesn't matter because in that moment, and that's something that I've realized over time, is it's only in the moments that we create the next moments. So for me, that is a very sacred space. Again, my soul is expanding and becoming more aware. I'm evolving in my human experience. And as that's happening and I'm aware of it, it's also happening for my clients. Because if you're fully present and honoring, the space that they have chosen to come into, your only job is to honor that trust. It's to honor that connection with them in that moment. And because I work energetically with people, you can feel the space change. You can feel the energy change. You can feel the person's energy come in all heightened and anxious. And within a few moments, they're sitting down, they're allowing the shoulders to relax. You're face to face with them, you're making eye contact, your heart is open, you're allowing them to be present for themselves first and foremost, but also in the space. So again, the biggest learning for me, and it continues through everything in my life, is just be there, meet people where they are, hold the space, honor it. It's not about you trying to prove all you know and all the things you've learned in life, because that doesn't matter to the person that needs you in that moment. They just need
Mm.
you to hear them. So that is my biggest lesson. It's just meet people where they are, honor the space, whether it's having a cup of tea with your friend or you're sitting in your therapy room or you're with a group of whatever amount of people in a group. Even in a group, you can still, as you're going around the room, hold space for each individual person. And the funny thing about that, Celine, is I remember holding a group. I'm not going to say where it was, but I was holding a group and there was two ladies in the group and there was something like 35 people in the group at the time. But I never think, oh my God, how am I going to get around to all of them? But I will individually speak to each one. And two ladies at the end said to me when it was over, going, I love all the work and everything, but you have to talk to everybody.
That's so funny.
And
You
I
can't
started
please
laughing.
everyone.
And I just started laughing and I said, well, there, I said, is maybe a little bit of awareness for you. You want to talk about you all the time, but you don't want to listen and learn from others.
Mm,
There's
mm,
always learning in that
mm,
irritation or that frustration or that trigger, isn't there, from somebody? And again, as you're working with people, you'll see some people and they want to share everything, 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 and they're not aware of the people either side of them. So again,
mm.
you bring it back to the awareness is, are you mindful of the people either side of you? Are you giving and holding space for them?
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And how did you get to this place of being able, I mean, because as you said, I think it is the most beautiful gift if all of us are able to be in that, being present in the moment and holding space. I will just share briefly from my own experience. That's a journey and it still is
Mm.
because, so I'd love to hear, was this always little Sharon when she was young? I'm sure it
Mm.
was. And maybe this often happens. And then sometimes things go a little bit awry and we find our way back to who we truly are and what we're here to
Mm.
do and share. But what I've often found is my own probably wounds and traumas and pain prevented me from being able to be really present, because as soon as I stopped, and it all rushes to the surface.
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
seems to be, have you found that? Did you find that in your own life? And if so, how? Yeah, just telling a little bit maybe of your story that
Mm.
has led you to be able to be so present and hold space so well.
Mm. So, my story, and it seems so funny when I say my story because I think it's a lot of people's story in life, really, and making it a very short version. I experienced childhood sexual abuse growing up from a very young age up to teenage years. And for me, it was survival at the time. So people find that very hard to believe, you don't understand what's going on. Obviously, you're a child. In my adult brain, I understand it all now, but as a child, you don't understand that fear, the power somebody can have over you, the manipulation. And again, somewhere inside of you, you feel like you've done something wrong, that it's your fault, and that if you told anybody that you would get blamed for it. And because, of course, your abuser is always threatening, to lock you away or send you to a home, a children's home, all of these things. And as a child, you believe all of those things. So for me, and I wrote this in my book, it was sometimes the fear of being abused was sometimes worse than the abuse itself. And that's where the anxiety will creep in, and it did for me in my life. But it was the fear of something really bad happening. It was again, as a child, not being able to control it, having the fear of what would happen next. So it was actually in the moments when I wasn't being abused that I feared the most. And people find that very strange. I can't explain it any other way than that. And again, in psychological terms, I would have disassociated from the actual abuse. So there is a part, and I think I've written it in my book, that I see myself standing and watching myself being abused as a child. I see myself distancing from the physical body, and that was to survive and to cope with it. But of course, when we disassociate, or in shamanic practices, they would call it, soul loss. And
Mm,
for all of us, no matter what we have gone through in life, we all lose a little bit of ourselves through any kind of trauma or shock, or, whatever things that have really had an impact in your life. So that little girl, Sharon, that had disassociated, had some soul loss, that was afraid of the abuse, afraid of being found out, afraid of being blamed, afraid of being judged. And those layers kept piling and piling down on top of her. So she was going around with a mask. And again, many people have done it, with whatever's going on in their own lives when they're young or even older, even now, and pretending that everything was okay, pretending that, you know, and I was never as loud as I am now. I wasn't a chatty person. Um, and there's parts of all of those years ago, Celine, that I don't actually remember. And again, that's a coping mechanism and a survival, part of our subconscious is saying, you, to survive, we're going to block out certain parts for you. And in some ways, I'm really glad. I'm really glad that I don't have to remember every single detail, because what I do remember took me a long time to be able to accept, even to acknowledge it was present and that it happened. So for all of that, and I hope that kind of helps,
Mm,
without going into all these details.
mm,
But as a teenager, of course, I believed then that I needed people to like me, you know, but who was I? So again, and if this is a teenage thing as well, we're
mm.
self-conscious, we're, worried about our body image, all of these things. And I love clothes and fashion. I loved being quirky. I had my hair really short. I used to wear docks, and waistcoats
You
and
should be really in nowadays.
yeah, and
The
it's
Doc Martens
amazing.
are all back.
There you go. It's everything just goes around in a cycle. So I suppose I wanted to stand out, but then there was a part of me that didn't want to stand out and be noticed
Mm,
because the child part of me said, if you are noticed, you're going to get hurt. So there was that conflict within me as a teenager growing up, wanting to be noticed, and then the little child part of me saying, hide, don't let anybody see you because you might get hurt.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a constant battle. And again, and I'm trying to explain it from childhood, teenage years,
Mm,
you just don't understand what it is. I understood that I was petrified. I was so afraid. I was afraid of everything, really. I was afraid of succeeding. I was afraid of failing. I was just afraid of, I don't, everything. And it's a very, very hard thing to describe because it was only until I suppose maybe 17 and 18 when I left home and I realized that I had to take responsibility, which I didn't because I was in a relationship where I wasn't allowed to take responsibility. So through all of that, and then coming when that relationship, broke, I was finally on my own thinking this was my freedom, but I completely fell apart, absolutely fell to my knees and broke apart. And I describe it as my body could not handle holding all of that pain any longer because it was like I had caged myself and all of the pieces of my childhood and teenage self were just held together by a tiny little bit of something.
mm,
And that time, and I was nearly 24 years of age, and I just broke apart. And I crumbled to my knees. And again, in the book, I wrote about it. And I roared, which is the title of the book, Someone Please Help Me. And I roared silently from my soul because I still wasn't able to find my voice to ask for help. It was still that silent screaming inside my heart, inside my head, because there was so much shame that I had carried around all of that as well, that I wanted help, but I was afraid people would judge me.
oh my God, Sharon. That I can feel that, and even though I didn't experience that, I think it's the human story in many ways, even though experienced in different ways for people. And I'm sure many are listening who may be in that, trying to come through something, maybe, and we'll talk about that because yeah, it's just to hear you say that, that silent scream inside is just, oh my God, it's heart-wrenching. But from that, what happened? So you're on your own, you said you fell apart. How did that materialize? Like what happened that because I think for many people, and I can say it for myself, something similar happened in a different way. There is that something has to happen, doesn't it, in the depths of our despair that we nearly all will face in some point or other in our lives. Something happens. Can you describe what happened that allowed you and helped you to get up and get the help and become the person you are today? Because that's a huge, huge, from what you've described, that's a huge um, step and
Mm.
journey. So,
Absolutely. And I don't make light of any of it because
mm,
obviously I'm years on from that. I've done a lot of work and it is extremely hard. So, and I, again, am so aware of people that are stuck in that. And again, I became a prisoner in my own mind. There was nobody holding the key when I was in my 20s. I
mm,
was imprisoning myself. And, one of the things I always said, I was running, trying to get away from something all of the time. But those demons were inside of me. It was my pain, it was my fear, it was my shame. And I think in that moment, without even realizing it, I just got so tired carrying it all. It just, and my body was starting to fall apart. You know, it was a sign of not loving myself and not appreciating myself. And I can't even recall the lead up to it. I just remember being in the box room that night, and I think I was I always used to think it was 2 stories, but it was actually 3 stories up. And for me, it would be easier to go out the window than to stay where I was feeling that pain. That was the thought that was so strong in my head. And so a lot of people say, how could anybody think of doing that? Because you want the pain to stop. It's not that I wanted to end my life. I just could not deal with the pain I was carrying any longer. And again, believing because I had to survive so long on my own within myself, because I didn't ask for help, I didn't reach out, I didn't share because of the shame, I was carrying it by myself. But if I had said to somebody, I'm struggling, if I just said those words, it may have changed, but I didn't do that because I had been used to all my life keeping those secrets, those dark secrets. So in those moments, I was literally on the floor in the fetal position and screaming, as I said, from the inside, but there was no sound coming out of my mouth. And it was the eerie silence for me. It was like rage and sadness and grief. And it was like this huge eruption inside of me. But all around me, there was stillness. There was no sound. And that's how I explained to people you could see a person walking down the street and they could be suffering so much inside silently without them uttering a word. So from that, and screaming, someone please help me silently, I can't tell you what happened in the moments afterwards, because when I woke up the next morning, I was tucked into my single bed with the sheets actually tucked in around me. So my arms were straight down, my body was straight down. It was like I was restrained almost. So, of course, I had to fight my way out of the bed, and I went to check because I shared a house with roommates that time. And I thought, oh my God, one of them came in and found me on the floor and put me to bed. I was even more ashamed now. But when I went to my door, and it was in one of those old big keys, it was still locked from the inside. So nobody physically had come in to help me.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I remember reading this in your book, you know. I actually, because I read your book at the time, and that moment I visualized, I remember even seeing where I felt the house or the place was. Like I literally was there with you, because although I didn't experience what you experienced, I absolutely have felt in the same place as you described.
Mhm.
And that in the fetal position, except I did scream outside at one stage. But
Yeah.
that's sort of, and I think many of us do. That is, so from there, that's pretty, wow. I mean, that obviously, shit, what happened from there when you had that realization that nobody
So
came in?
again, as I said, it was moments, which it felt like a long time when I woke up and checked, because my first reaction was panic, I suppose. But then when I kind of sat on the bed and thought, nobody physically helped me, and I was trying to work this out in my head, and I felt like there was a reason I had survived this, that I was still here. And that kind of frightened me even more, because I thought, now I have to take responsibility for my own life. It's me now. It's not anybody else. It's me. And that fear
Mm.
ran through every part of my being, because I thought, well, how do I want to live now? With nobody controlling me, nobody telling me to keep a secret, nobody telling me what to do. This was all down to me. Big.
That's a moment, isn't it? That
It's a
is,
huge moment
yeah.
because then you choose yourself. And whether you know it or aware of it at the time, you're starting to embrace who you are, even with all of the stuff that's gone on for you, or all the beliefs you had, or the conditioning, or the patterns. You're still choosing you. So it was, and again, that's when I started practicing mindfulness now, which is 26, 29 years ago.
My God.
Yeah. And of course, it wasn't mindfulness to me. It was basically moment by moment trying to survive. So my first big step was to unlock that bedroom door and go to the bathroom, to take those steps. And that was like walking the Camino, because if I went to the bathroom, I would wash my face, wash my hands, look at myself in the mirror,
Mm.
be greeting this new Sharon in the mirror and looking at her and accepting her, looking at her eyes and saying, I'm here for you. It was all those little steps. It was coming back and it was getting dressed and it was choosing to eat, choosing to go outside the door, choosing to talk to people, choosing all of there were choices in every moment. And I used to do this every day and I played this little game with myself. You just have to get through the next half an hour. You got through that. Now it's just the next hour. And then I would do that hour by hour. And then when it came to nighttime, again, a hard place to be in the dark with your own thoughts. You're not distracting yourself or avoiding, or trying to avoid things. You're sitting there. So I started focusing on my breath. And this is where my breath became my anchor into the body, which I always had tried to disassociate from because of the hurt and pain. So I used to breathe into my body, and it didn't feel like a good place to be. But I thought it's the only body I have. So you're going to have to breathe into it. And I saw it as also a means to help me, my heart and my head, to get to where I needed to go. So I believed I had to make my body stronger. So I had to feed it and walk it and dress it and wash it and all of those things. And then I could start feeling like I was in my body. And again, this is very hard to
Mm.
try and share because it really was that process for me. And nobody would have known it was going on for me. Nobody. If they saw me walking down the street, they wouldn't realize that I'm going to myself. Now, if you can just cross the road, you've
Yes.
you've achieved another little step for
Mm.
yourself. Can you go to this place? Can you go to that place? Can you feel safe on your own without having, a place to go? That's how we're talking about the journey is as important as the destination for me. The journey, every step of that journey was so profound for me. And by the time then that I went to nighttime and getting into my bed, breathing into my body, anchoring myself in that body, I started to go deeper within the body. So here's where the energy work came in.
Mm.
And I started realizing that my body was holding so much trauma. It was held so tight and tense that as I was breathing into it, and my breath was only shallow because I wasn't breathing fully into my body. So then I had to learn to breathe fully into the body. I had to breathe in life. And that's what I was doing before. I was surviving up here, just
Yeah.
trying to get through. So even the breath for me, I was like, this is amazing. I probably have never fully being able to breathe fully into my body, into to feel your belly rise and to feel it fall again, to feel your chest rise and up, and to feel this wave coming through your body. I was experiencing all of these beautiful moments. And while I was doing that, I could feel the energy moving in my body. I could actually literally see it and feel it. I could feel the colors of my aura. Everything was opening up for me. And again, not really understanding any of it, I have a curious mind. And I realized that that curiosity has helped me to learn more about myself and then in turn, obviously, go out into the world and help others. But it became like this beautiful journey, and inside of me, there was this universe that I hadn't explored, that I had hid from, or I'd lost myself outside of it, or placed myself outside of this. So I went in, and every time I went in on one of my beautiful breaths, I used to go in and travel around my body and to all of these beautiful places, but also to the darkest places that I had locked away lots of things that I didn't want to see. And I always asked my body, I asked, is it safe for me to open that doorway today? And if it
Mm.
was, I would go in very gently with the breath and I would say, show me what I need to let go of. And there was no one teaching me how to do that. It was something that I knew by being aware of myself and wanting to love me, but afraid to love myself, afraid of what I might find, that I just took one step on the outside world, but I also took one step on the inside world.
My God, that is just, oh my God. For any, I'm sure anyone listening, that is the most beautiful journey you've even taken us on now, just to show, and even so compassionately, just to take that,
Mm,
and even to ask that question, as you said, is it okay for me to go there?
yeah.
And it's like the wisdom. I mean, the fact that you innately or intuitively knew that this is, that you didn't go to anyone. And like, it just shows the wisdom. And what did you, at the time, Sharon, did you, what would I say, oh, that's connected to some greater wisdom or guides or God or yourself? Or how did you relate to what was happening? Was there a greater connection to something bigger, or just was it through the body you were?
Mm. Well, I
Mm.
suppose I'm trying to think back. So when I was a child, I could see spirit, but again, we weren't aware of spirit. We were aware of ghosts and, that
Mm.
all these ghost
Mm.
stories and all of those things. And I was aware of energy, but I didn't know what it was. And I used to do this thing where I would reach out my hand in the middle of the night because the energy it was overwhelming for me because the fear was huge. And I used to reach out my hand and imagine that it was a bale of hay, and that if I kept doing this, I'd make it smaller until I could hold it in my hand so that I could lie there without feeling so overwhelmed. And I used to hide under the covers. But my dream world was also an escape. My dream world, I traveled everywhere in my dream world. So my dream world became a safer place than my living world, my waking world. So that's why I love sleep, but I love my dream world. I love allowing myself to go on to these beautiful journeys. And it was like you bring back something with you that nobody can take away from you because it's just your experience. So I suppose through childhood, I was not aware. I didn't know what to call it. And again, as I was starting to practice to be present with the body, go into the energy of it. And one of the people that I was really connected to in spirit was my sister who had passed away. And I think it was her, and it was kind of later on that I realized I had this really strong connection. And I had this memory of this lady always rubbing my hair when I was a child. And I knew she wasn't physical, but I thought she was a ghost. And later on, I found out she was my maternal grandmother and that she had been comforting me a lot of the time as a child from spirit when I was afraid. But I was afraid because I thought she was the ghost.
Mm.
So I think there was always the awareness of spirit, but I didn't know what it was as a child. As a teenager, I completely blocked it out. And then as I started opening up to this, I knew then there was more. And I think what we were talking about there was their awareness of it. Somewhere inside of me, I knew there was something stronger. I always believed there was something stronger. I remember, writing that, you may break me now, but you won't break me as a woman. I remember some words, I can't even remember what they are now. They were so like, at the time, they were so strong for me. I don't know where I got that strength from, but now I know my soul had a purpose in this world and I had many more things to fulfill being alive as this human Sharon. But again, we have a choice, even as a soul, whether we want to carry on this contract or we want to finish it, that the world is too harsh. So that moment for me, obviously, was in that box room, Galway City, and the third story window. But I do believe I was helped. I truly believe I was helped. I mean, I physically couldn't lie there flat in the bed and have all the covers tucked in either side as if I was, like you would a small child.
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
felt like. I felt like a child that was going to hurt yourself. And that some wise, caring person had come in and said, we're going to keep you safe. We can only do that now while you're asleep. But when you wake in the morning, it's going to be your choice to keep you safe.
That's such a powerful message around choice, I think,
Mm.
because pain and what you've described is, impossible for me to understand. I haven't been through it. I know others who have, and I've heard similar descriptions. I'm not saying similar, everybody's
Yeah.
obviously experience is very unique of that sort of disassociation and
Mm.
what happens. But with any and is that, do you find for clients now or people you're working with, because you've gone on and it sounds like what you intuitively knew and learned and put into practice yourself, you then have gone on and gone on to help others in that way. Is that a big part of the work that you do with clients in sort of realizing they have a choice? Because I think often we believe we don't.
Mm.
How much has that played a role when someone comes to you maybe and they're in pain or struggling?
Yeah, I have a lovely friend, and I remember years ago she was going through a challenging time, and she would be on the phone to me. And she'd say, what will I do? Tell me what to do, all of these things. And I said, you have a choice. And I remember years later, she said, if you effing tell me I have a choice again, she said. But she realized later on that yes, it was her choice. But when you are in that really dark place where you feel like you've no control, where you're struggling just to get up in the morning, it's very hard to believe you have a choice. If your physical body is unwell, if you are on lots of treatment, if you're, exhausted, your body is exhausted, your mind is finding it hard to say, will I ever come out of this? It is very hard to believe you have a choice. So, of course, people get angry at me at times and going, I don't have a choice. I didn't ask for this. This happened to me. Whereas I look at it now and go, maybe it's happening for us. I'm not saying it is. Maybe it's happening for us so that we can change something in our lives. But again, that's only for the person to know. So I don't tell people what they should do,
Mm,
how they
mm,
should do it. If I am working with somebody, again, they're individuals, as you said, Celine. There's no one size fits all at all. So you're working energetically with the person. So even before the person comes or I've met them physically, I'm tuning into their energy because their energy has already connected to me soul to soul. So I will read and watch and observe and listen to their soul's energy, showing me what needs to be released, healed, changed within this present moment. It can be stuff from the past, but it can also be the anxiety or the worries or concerns about the future. And it's all held within their energy, affecting their choices and
mm.
affecting their decisions, but they may be unaware of it. So when they sit in front of me then and I'll say, how can I help you today? And they're here for whatever reason, or there's big things going on in their life. And then I'll say, I tune into your energy before you come, and this is what I picked up. And they sit across me with their mouths open, going, how did you know that? Nobody knows that. And I said, nobody else needs to know it. I said, you've been carrying it for years. And your energy, like your body, is now tired of holding it. It's almost like it's just going around in cycles. It's showing up and appearing in different times of their lives. It could be within their relationships, within their careers, within their, mental health issues. It can be lots of things. But again, for me, the empowerment is making the client aware the same way I made myself aware all those years ago. What is my body trying to tell me? What does that feel like? What is that emotion? What is it that needs to be looked at today in this moment? Not overall, not everything over a
Mm,
lifetime,
mm,
but in this present moment, what is the one thing that is standing out in my energy? So, of course, that's a mindful practice now as well. It's listening to, acknowledging the emotions, being aware of where your thoughts are going. You know, how does my physical body feel today? What part of it is struggling? It could be just, oh, I always have that tense shoulder. But why is your shoulder always tense? Which side is it on? Because again, that's relating energetically to some part of you, whether it be the controlling part of you or the nurturing part of you. There is so much that our energy can tell us that I get excited. And, you know, my groups laugh at me when we go on retreat. I'm saying everything in your energy is telling you a story. Every moment of the day of the week, every week of the year, it's constantly changing as you are changing. Even if you feel completely stuck and lost, your energy is still changing. It's never going
mm.
to be the same ever.
Yeah. It's so true, isn't it? When you think if
Mm,
I always go back to nature as well, because that was the biggest teacher for me when I was going through cancer. I had to sort of be brought back to sort of that. I keep calling it the remembrance of who I really am, that I'm still in
mm,
that. Like it's like what you described, at the beginning, the little girl and what she, and energy and awareness of energy. And so many women I've spoken to often will recall that and then through various things that have happened, they've sort of disconnected from it, and usually through trauma or something
mm,
difficult or just life, and then they rediscover it. Do,
mm.
do you feel that's an important, how do you look at, because I know, as you said, it is a totally the same for me. Like I say with cancer, it did happen for me. I'm not saying it has for anyone else.
Yeah,
That's personal. That's all. It's a perspective I took. I think I had to take. I don't
yeah,
know that I would be here otherwise if I didn't start to shift how I looked at it, but something took over. So, and I'm very grateful for that. It doesn't mean it was easy, but I'm very grateful for it. So, do you think if you're not do you think, but how do you look at you know, that all of the difficult experiences, the abuse and anything else that happened and where you are now, how do you look at
sure.
it?
I suppose I look at it from a woman that has experienced many things in her life. And then I talk about my body has, my mind has, different aspects of Sharon has experienced different aspects of trauma and challenges. But this part of me that is part of the universe, has experienced a growth, a healing, a transition, a transformation, a learning, an empowerment, a love. There's so many things I, because you are more than those traumas, you are more than those old stories. So when you said, can you tell your story? And I said, oh, my story, because I don't believe it's my story anymore.
Mm,
It was when I
mm,
kept it locked inside of myself and I kept it wrapped in shame with a little bow of guilt on the top and, all of those things. Now it's not my story because I've shared it, and it's like I've released it out into the world, and wherever that energy of that story goes and it greets somebody else's energy, they will take what they need from it, take what I have done from it, or other people in other books, in other stories, in other podcasts, and they'll take bits of everybody's beautiful energy and
mm.
experiences, and they'll take that, and it'll be like this beautiful ball of energy floating within them and all around them, and they'll say, oh, this can help me, and they're bringing in this wisdom, this universal wisdom from everybody, and their energy starts to open up without them even doing anything in particular. They're open to receive it. But when we have closed ourselves off in, this is my story, my trauma,
Mm,
we're not allowing ourselves to receive what we need to heal or to recover or to transform or to transition or just to breathe properly.
yeah.
So I had done that for years without any awareness. And it was through nearly leaving this world that my whole awareness and life opened up. And through that, and through just the breath being my anchor, starting to visit my body as a friend and starting to say, if I can look at you in the mirror today, that would be a great step. And it was the very simple steps. And that's why I always say, one step at a time,
Mm.
keep it simple, stop overcomplicating it. Life is complicated enough on the outside. But all of those things, I can now sit here and say, I'm now grateful where I am. I'm grateful. And I can't say I'm grateful for the experiences because that's, I think, again, very hard for people that haven't come out to hear. But when I'm here without all of those experiences, I wouldn't be here sitting to Celine O'Donovan on your Wild Woman podcast. I don't think I would be here at all. And I
Mm.
spoke to a very close friend of mine that was on the retreat at the weekend, and we shared, we were school friends, and we shared a little bit about what we were talking about earlier. And she said, I don't think I'd be here either, Sharon. And for us to sit in that moment and to acknowledge each other where we were at that time, you know, and but to be here now as 50-something-year-old women, and just we were sitting overlooking a beautiful mountain in Delphi, and it just was the most peaceful moment. And I just felt so grateful. And I thought, I am meant to be here with my friend in this moment. It's the only place that matters because I'm acknowledging how grateful I am. And she was doing the same. And that to me is, if you don't take those moments and embrace them, then you're just allowing all of the bigger things that you believe are bigger than you to take over, because it's in those little moments of the gratitude or the awareness or the appreciation or the stillness that it is the biggest opening for everything else to come in.
If you know what I get an image of as you're speaking, it's like, and you describe the breath, which again has been, when you said breath is life, like even when you said that earlier, it's even the realization
Mhm.
that this is what's like, I always say, like powering you up, and you don't have
Yeah.
batteries. So this
Yeah.
breath is what's giving you the energy and the openness to be alive and function, even as you said, just to start there. But then what you describe, it's like more and more in doing that and being present, little by little. This is, I'm sure you've said this earlier as well as your experience. And just for listeners, it's like then the next thing that you need will be shown to you. But
Mhm.
if you're not, this was a big revelation to me as well. If I'm
Mhm.
not present and running, which is understandable, we all do it. It's because it's
Mhm.
often very painful to be present. But in doing what you described, just in small little second by second,
Mhm.
moment by moment, minute by minute, it's like air, that breath has an opportunity to bring something new in
Yeah.
that will bring you to the next step. You know, like
Mhm.
even you having that silent scream in the bedroom, something greater heard it, you know, and
Mhm.
there you woke up in the bed that, okay, I'm alive, I'm here, I'm, just about, but I'm here. So
Mhm.
it's so beautiful how you describe it, because is that how life, I mean, I know it doesn't mean that life is all goes swimmingly just because we do this, but we're sort of armed, or we're like what you said, that fire, something comes alive, doesn't it? It's sort of,
Mhm.
I felt it like an inner, like a little flame. And once I paid a little bit of attention, I've no other words, it just seemed to get little bit by little by little by little
Yeah.
brighter and brighter. And is that, you talk about resilience a lot as well.
Mhm.
So I get the sense for me as well, that is cultivating resilience, because you start to test yourself out a little bit and go,
Yeah.
hey, gosh, I managed that. Like, however small it is, I went to the shops, I went into the bathroom, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
Yeah, so when you say there, and I love the way you're describing it, like that little flame inside. So there's people say, what sparks you, what
Mm,
grabs your attention, what's your passion. So we all have that spark, that fire burning inside of us. And when we're passionate about something, we feel that fire really strong. We talk about it so energetically and so passionately, with joy. Or the
Mm.
same thing, if we're really angry or upset about an injustice of the world, we could be quite passionate. It still sparks something within us. But I think going back to that night, it was that screaming. I think I woke to my soul. I think I had so disassociated from the physical and the spiritual side of me that when I screamed, it was like I josted myself back into connection with my
Mm.
soul, and that my soul had a chance to wake up.
Yes. Or
Yes,
probably might have been sitting here going, gosh, is she ever going to?
yeah,
Yeah, who
but
knows? Yeah.
but
Yes.
ready for
Yes.
me when I was ready to
Mm.
take me to that next step. But then, as I said, and we come back to the choice, my soul was guiding me, but I still, in the human part of me, even through all of the fear and all of the things that was going on, I still had to make that choice. So again, your soul is trying to do its best for you to see how wonderful and amazing and strong and resilient you are. But if we do not believe that in our minds, it's like a conflict going on inside of you constantly. And people talk about, the inner critic or the loud voice. And the loud voice is ourselves, because the loving voice is our soul. The loud voice is us, and it's all of the things that we're repeating that have been said to us or we've been criticized for, or society tells us we should do, we're not good enough. That's us repeating that in loudspeaker mode to ourselves. And then you have your soul really gently going, but you did really well yesterday in whatever it was, or, you've shared your story, Sharon. Yeah, but I should be doing something else. You'll have this constantly going on, this battle. So for me, sometimes we can't silence the inner critic. But what I like to do now, because I have a great sense of humor, I like to say to my inner critic sometimes explicit words, and other times, other times I
The
like
soul gets a bit loud.
yeah, I say
Yeah.
to the inner critic, thank you for showing up and reminding me how I will not speak to myself any longer.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. I'm going
Yeah.
to remember that one. That's really good.
hmm So
Yeah.
remember, even at school, there was Peter and Paul, the two birdies on, and whatever they were, one was a good one and one wasn't so good, whatever it was. But again, it's like that. It is this constant, people don't know where to look, they're distracted by everything. And for me, it's just to come in and find that voice within yourself again through the breath. And it's expressing to yourself, what is it I need in this moment? What does my body need in this moment? And what is it that I need to be able to say today? And it mightn't be to anybody else, it might be just to yourself, that reflection in the mirror. And again, even when it comes to, challenges within your life with other people, and the anger comes up between people, it's because we don't feel like we can say what we want to say. We're still holding back. And I hear people saying constantly, well, he doesn't understand me or she doesn't understand me. And da, da, da. And I say, because you're not expressing what you need. And most of our suffering comes from not being able to express what we need in that moment.
Hmm. And does that, Sharon, just when you describe as well going back and feeling through and going into the body and the breath, as time went on, just that to just sort of link back to getting to where you are now, did you get support and help obviously along the way as well, or was this a very inner journey on your own? Because it sounds like, wow, she's amazingly did all of this herself, in conjunction with your soul, obviously, and
Yeah.
greater. So, yeah.
Yeah, I truly believe that I was being supported, I suppose, by a spiritual team. I
Mm,
didn't know what I
mm,
wanted to call them.
mm,
I didn't know who they
mm,
were at the time. Um, but I knew that my soul, and again, even if I use that word, I knew that my soul was really strong. It was strong enough for me to be able to survive physically on this world. And I had to listen to it more instead of the outside world telling me I was no use or no good for anything or
yeah.
any of those things. And then through that, I started to meditate deeper and longer. I was practicing mindfulness. I didn't realize it was mindfulness. I became more aware of the energy within me and around me. Then, as I moved out into the world, I became more aware of energy. And I also realized that I could hold on to people's energy. And that was something I didn't want to do because that wasn't going to help me. So through all of that learning, and I read a lot of books and I did a lot of reading and research. And I thought, okay, so this is mindfulness. This is this type of meditation. This is spiritual work. This is, the auric fields. These are my chakras. And I was going, wow, this is amazing. There is so many other aspects to our energy, to our mind, to our emotions, to our body that I was never taught. We were never taught in school. So, of course, I became like a child wanting to feed myself, nurture myself with more information. And the only time that I did actually receive counseling was when I separated from my first marriage. And I went in there because I blamed myself and I was taking all the blame on me. And when I went in and worked with that counselor, she was the first person that I ever told that I experienced childhood sexual abuse. And in the moment I told her I wanted to go under this small little table and hide. That's my
Mm.
exact feeling. She was a nun, believe it or not, Catholic nun, and she had some explicit words herself when she was describing my abuser and how they had taken advantage of me as a child and betrayed my trust. And I looked at her and I smiled because I thought, somebody normal. It's not somebody from a theoretical kind of point of view talking about what I should experience now and what I should be doing. It was someone that was horrified by the abuse, even though she was a practicing nun. She was still a counselor. She was just amazing. And I went to her for a short time to prove to myself, I suppose, in my head that I did deserve happiness and I didn't have to stay in an unhealthy relationship and that there was a chance for me to live a happy life. But I knew I needed to do this work internally, if you like, on myself. I
Mm.
knew I was strong enough
Mm.
to do that. So then I went out and studied everything that I had kind of become more aware of. And I became a Reiki master. Did clinical hypnotherapy because I was fascinated with the mind and how we can fool ourselves. I trained as a meditation and mindfulness teacher. I did transpersonal counseling. I journaled. There was so much I did. And I'm still learning, Celine, because I still think there's so many ways we can help and support ourselves on a daily basis. And whatever I learned that time, it was only for me. I had no ever a plan to come out and do this work with anybody. Nothing, nothing. It wasn't until I had a miscarriage in 2004 and my world kind of fell apart again. But I believe that little girl Annie that I lost at 12 weeks was gifting me another opening in my life through that grief and loss. And everything opened up after that for me. I started opening up my home to other people, sharing meditation with them, just so I could have company in this beautiful space. And as I did, Spirit started working through me and giving me messages for these people. And I sat there going, they're all going to think I'm cracked. But they didn't. They just more and more people came for the meditation, for the guidance. It became into my sitting room. And then I was in Galway and Tuam and Mayo and everywhere. And it just grew. And none of it was planned. It all just
Mm.
happened. Again, when I was ready, the space opened up, and my choice was to either step into it or say no. But I stepped into it because
Oh,
I'm curious.
well, isn't that? And you know what? When you said about your kitchen table, I don't know the amount of women I've met who said, "Oh, I started all of this around Sharon Fitzmaurice's kitchen table."
Uh,
I said, "She must have a huge kitchen table."
it wasn't, and we used to bring in garden chairs because I didn't have enough chairs to sit on. And then in the sitting room, because we'll move in there, it's bigger, and the couches could only hold so many. Then the garden chairs and the dining room chairs were brought in, and sometimes people were sitting on the edge of chairs, but it didn't matter because again, to me, it was that space. It was a space where we could all come together, even if they had never been there before. They might bring somebody along for the first time and we'd sit. And the space was just so beautiful for me. As I was feeling safer and safer in myself, that
Mm.
was the energy that I was creating for all of these people to come into, that they could feel safe, even if it was just for a few hours on a Tuesday morning, that they could come in, be themselves, bitch and moan, share what they wanted, let it all out, cry, talk about whatever was going on for them. It was space that they could do that on a Tuesday morning. So and it still is to me a very sacred space. And I still, every time that I am in a space, whether it be just a one-on-one client, whether that's physically or online or with a group where I'm teaching Reiki or working with my retreat groups or I'm doing a talk, it still is a very sacred space because these people have come because they've put some form of trust in you, in what you're sharing. So I think that is a privilege and never to be taken for granted. And I'll never stand at the top of any class or anything and go, now I know it all and you have to listen. It's never that. To me, it is just a space where we're all sharing and learning and growing together. So I have an online members group where we do that, and it's basically to learn, heal, and grow together because together we are stronger and we'll help each other rise, even if it's today down on my knees, not able to get up, we're going to help. Even if we all get down on our knees together and just be with them where they are, we can do that. So together we can rise and support them as we're doing so. And I think, again, the way the world is so fast paced, and I think people just need to stop and when they are connecting with somebody, even if it is online, to really connect with them and to take a moment to really read what they're saying or to look at their picture that they've shared or their memories and to just comment something underneath. Let them know that they've been seen and heard. You know,
Mm.
we scroll through life like we scroll
We
through
scroll through
social
life.
media. Everything is the next best thing, and what else is going to distract me or take my attention away from being present? So, if you're finding it hard to be present online, it's going to be extra hard to be present
Mm.
for yourself. So,
Yeah.
if you are going to be intentionally online scrolling, look at what you're looking at, be aware of what you're looking at, who you're connecting to, let them know that you're seen. And in turn, they will return that and say, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Celine, for your
Mm.
lovely comments. And they're like, isn't that so lovely? Celine commented
Mhm.
today, or Sharon posted a love heart, or said, oh, I remember something like that. There's a conversation, there's a connection. But what we're doing is just,
Yeah.
we
And you
just,
feel it, Sharon, don't you? You do feel
mm,
it. You can tell when someone, it's like, can say empty words and moves on or something. We feel it,
yeah.
I, I, I don't know about you, but I feel the biggest shift we're in right now on the planet is this sort of shift, and it's like what you're describing. The more people doing, when you said about saying telling your story at the beginning, and it isn't really my story because but that's the sense I'm getting from when I'm listening to you is like the more when we're ready, we sort of, it's like opening up and letting that sort of light, get, through our breath and everything else, letting it get bigger. Then we sort of are moved in the world in a way, like we sort of
Mm,
find, and then someone else will go, like you said, oh, that's my story. And then
yeah.
to me, it becomes this more universal. I just get the sense that each of us, whatever we go through, but we're still all part of the one big soul, or however you want to look.
Mm,
And we sort of, well, that's how I see it. I've come through whatever I've come through. Everybody who's here has come through something. You're not
mm,
here alive on the planet now at a certain age if you haven't come through something.
yeah.
So you have something to offer, don't you? And you have something to share. And like the more we do it, it's like a beautiful, I don't know, a moving sort of
It's
just,
an energy and it's
yeah.
a connection and it is again seeing another person, even if it is online. So if I had any message, I'd say slow
Yeah.
down, really connect with people, whether that's online or in person, really connect with them, be present with them. Because when you're doing that, you're being present for yourself. When you're present for yourself, your energy shifts and moves. It's then in a place where ah, I can breathe. And it's just as I said, you're breathing in life. The body is responding to that. It's feeling safer in where it is in this moment. And then your energy changes and this beautiful ripple goes out into the world. And like that, then you come back. Because the amazing thing, and I have to mention my wonderful husband,
Mm,
when a few months before I met him, I was literally going to, or wanting to take the pain away, we'll put it that way. And a few months later, I met the most wonderful man in the world. Not just wonderful man, the most wonderful soul, because that's really what he is. And from that awful sheer place where I was, but because I opened up and I chose to honor the space within me, my breath, my body, to give myself the love and attention, that had a ripple effect. And it went out and met John's soul, the kindest soul there has ever been on this planet. And he saw me the way I couldn't see me. And it was
mhm,
just so powerful because I still thought I don't deserve the love of this amazing human. He's too kind, he's too generous, he's patient, he's all of these things and funny with it. But I still didn't believe I deserved that love. And he persisted to love me unconditionally until that I could do that for myself. That is a very hard thing for any other person to do for somebody. Because usually what happens is when people are going through a hard time, they will push others away and other people will get cross and angry and say, well, they didn't want me or they didn't want me, my
mhm,
help, instead of
mm,
just persisting and saying, I'm still here for you. I know you're hurting, but I'll be here when you're ready. I'm going to check in with you. You don't have to respond, but just know I'm here. So the same thing goes for online. You don't know what another person is going through, and they might put a post up, and you might go, Harry, I just like it and move on. But again, if you're really connecting with the energy of that person and you're present in yourself, just say hi.
mm.
Just say hi today, or your post resonated with me, or I love that picture, or it was a lovely family photo, or you look like you were on holidays, look at you in your holidays. Just acknowledging others. Because when we're acknowledging others, we're starting to relearn how to acknowledge who we are and not avoid what's going on for us. And if we can connect within ourselves and to other people, that huge connection is creating this beautiful, energetic light and conversation around us.
Mm.
And it's very hard to describe energetically. But just as something you said, and I'll go back to it, you said it's like this golden spider web and that we're all connected. We could be here one day and over here. When I was sitting this morning looking out at my beautiful garden and nature and the birds, on the chair in front of me was the most intricate spider web. So that beautiful spider had probably taken all night to build that. And
Mm.
with my OCD tendencies years ago, where I had to be clean, everything had to be clean, I would have washed that away. Today I sat and admired it. So when you mentioned it, I said, there you are, there's the conversation. There's the conversation. I took time to notice and value this spider's work and this beautiful web. And then Celine comes and mentions the beautiful web of life.
Incredible. Isn't it incredible? And the other thing I will say was I was quite anxious about the internet, the World Wide Web. Remember, I might have said it to you in a message, and this morning, and I said, okay, you can get stressed and be plugging things in and out, and you won't even be here with Sharon. You'll be
Yeah,
just. And I had to go to the shop, and I don't know if it was at the same time, Sharon, but I sat into my car to come back, and I just felt those wave of peace. What's going on? I wasn't remotely worried about the thing. Must have been the same time you were doing that. And I literally drove home as calm as anything, came out, plugged everything, and didn't even look at it. And look at it,
yeah,
it's fine.
there you go. And
Isn't
again, we
that
can
incredible?
create through the worry and the anxiety, the
Mm,
conversation we're
mm,
creating and in our energy is that which we will get back. More
yes.
anxiety, more worry, more fear. Whereas again, I'm not saying your anxiety,
Mm,
it's not real in your mind,
mm,
but it's
mm,
very real in your energy. So you're again, the conversation you're having with the world is that you're getting more of that feeling, thought, and whatever back to you as anxiety or anxious feelings or worries or all of those things. Whereas again, from that place of awareness, you just come back to your breath. And again, with anxiety,
mm,
the one thing people can't do is when they're really anxious is to breathe in. I say you don't have to breathe in, breathe out. I do say let it
mm.
go to F. Just let it go. Breathe out and let go. Because remember what we're trying to do? We're holding it in, we're restricting ourselves. And every day, and I'd say that again to everyone, just let it go. Just breathe out, shout it out, sing it out safely into a pillow, wherever it is. Put on a song, sing, 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 whatever it is, dance your heart out. But stop holding on to it because that is your choice. Every day
Okay.
it's your choice. And again, that's if you have the awareness to do it, because many people will have cellular memory, they'll have trauma held within their cells, and their body will go into, freeze mode at certain times, and they're not sure why. But again, they'll need support around that. So for me, it was understanding what I was holding on to and connecting it with myself, having a conversation with myself, and then going out and learning all about it. And then coming back and having another conversation with myself, but this time with a little bit more knowledge. And then
Mm,
the more work I did, I was gaining wisdom into how everything works for me. And as a result of that, every day, if I meditate, I'll check in with myself. How is my body feeling? What's going on for you? I'm very aware of my triggers, very aware of when I get defensive with people. And again, afterwards, I'll step back and go, right, where did that come from? There is
mm,
another part of you that needs your attention. That is what's constantly calling to us all of the time through our interactions with people in life, with situations. We are constantly being shown the next thing or what needs our attention.
mm. To pay attention. Thank you, Sharon. I feel I could keep you all day, but I won't
And
because
I
we.
could stay chatting to you. It's lovely,
And I
Celine.
thank you. I think for anyone, for me and for the listeners, you literally have taken us on such a journey with such compassion and understanding and just gentleness. And just a reminder, what again comes to me is the wound is where the light gets in. Isn't that the word that
Yes.
I think Rumi and people then say Leonard Cohen in a song? And it can sound a little bit, but it is the truth, isn't it? It is, if we're open to it, little, you've really sort of shown just step by step in a very gentle way. We don't do all this in one go. And with the breath in and a breath out,
And remembering also that we have to be aware of those wounds because in our head we will call them one thing, but our body calls them something else, our emotion calls them something else.
mm,
Your different ages of your different aspects of who you are will have a different memory of them. So again, it's all of those aspects we need to look at within ourselves. And I call them the invisible wounds, the wounds that you hold on to and you consciously are aware of. You'll say, oh, that's where the light can get in. But it's the ones that are invisible that you haven't visited, that you're not aware of, are the ones
mm.
that hurt the most and you're not sure why.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So step at a time with all of
Yeah.
this and awareness. And just a last question to you, Sharon. I will put up all of your links as to how people can contact you. I don't know if I even need to ask you this because I think it is your state of being. I was going to ask you, what are you really excited about now and what's next for Sharon? But I go, Sharon, every time I meet her, anyways, it's and brims with excitement.
Uh, I'm really excited. Again, God, if again sitting down this morning, I was just excited at being grateful for the last year. So, what has happened so far with John being diagnosed and being well, for all the lovely people I've met with my work and groups, and, like that, having the podcast, having wonderful guests like you, Celine, having this conversation. And that's what I'm really excited about where I am. And I still don't know where it's going to bring me. And there's lots of things going on. But again, those opportunities or experiences will flow into my awareness at the right time. So again, sometimes it's just, I talk to people about getting out of the bed and taking that step foot forward, looking in the mirror. But even on the moment you wake, that's your moment for excitement because you're alive. You have another chance today, another chance to begin again. You're alive. You can swing your legs out of the bed today,
To
with what,
participate, isn't it? Even just, I like
yes.
that word participate because you're not on your own doing it, but yet we do have to, take a step and do
Yeah.
something like you did. And that, that's, I think, the miracle as well of listening to your story. I'm not saying it can just be the smallest step, but even just the next breath, like what happens when we just take even the smallest, something happens to say, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And that's such a powerful reminder today you've given everybody. So I'm truly grateful for everything you've shared, Sharon, and just for being here, reminding me to be present, reminding me of all just such a beautiful, beautiful gift you've given me and everyone this morning, and for making sure that the internet worked. Don't know how you pulled that one off.
There you go.
But I swear to God, it hasn't been clearer or steadier. And I felt it. So never
Oh,
doubt the power of the energy and
absolutely.
the
Celine,
greater
thank you.
magic behind everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. As I said, it's again a part of me was saying, what am I going to talk to Celine about? Because, and there is so much to have conversation about. But again, it's really to be kind and gentle and compassionate with yourself in those steps every day. Stop focusing on how far you want to go and where you want to get and come back to today because your energy will support you and it will gift you the experiences and the people. You don't have to be striving constantly for it. Just open the door to your heart, let your soul do the work. You take the physical steps and actions as you need to, and just trust yourself. Trust and believe in yourself. You only have to do today. Today is all that's important. Thank you, Celine.
Thank you, Sharon Fitzmaurice, so much for being with me today. Take care, everyone, and until the next time. Bye bye.